was a very specific place that I struggled in my relationship with my husband, and that was not getting defensive when he would give me feedback or when he would share something with me about my actions, my words that had some sort of negative impact on him. My old pattern would be to either get defensive and get angry and project anger out, or do that and then try and play tit for tat and turn the tables, or I would shut down. I would go into a shame spiral, and it's almost like I would moonwalk backwards out of the room, only with much less style. And one of the things that I have learned in, I'd say, overcoming, dissolving, moving through that pattern to the point where I no longer get defensive, I no longer collapse and crumble, but I no longer project anger and energy out at him. Rather, I can stay really centered in myself and receive the feedback he's giving and respond very conscientiously. One of the ways that I went from A to B was by working on the thing itself, which was very helpful. I worked on regulating myself in the moment when he would give me feedback, taking deep breaths, not making up stories in my head about him or me or the situation. All of these things were very helpful, a very literal way to learn this skill and create a change in my relationship. One place where I actually learned more relationship skills than in many other places in my life was outside of my relationship when I would come to the gym, which is where I am right now. And what I often do at the gym is I dance. How does dancing help us build relationship skills? When we come to the gym, we can do linear movements like lifting weights, 1, 2, 3, very linear, very planned, perhaps strategic, or we can do nonlinear movement, things that are completely unplanned, ways that we've perhaps never moved our bodies before, new movements, imbalanced movements, all sorts of things. When we venture out into doing something that we haven't done before, we show ourselves that there are new patterns available for us. And thus, we don't have to fall back into the same old pattern. Now, every time I come to the gym, I could do linear movements up and down, and that would keep my mind patterned in one particular way. But when I do nonlinear movement, I am completely opening my body and thus my mind to new patterns, new ways of thinking, new ways of orienting myself in space. I may do balance work on one foot. And while that doesn't always directly translate to keeping our balance inside of a conflict with our partner, as we train our body to open itself to new movements, to open itself to needing to balance on one foot versus two, or to doing a completely new move through the air, whatever it is we're doing, we then tend to open ourselves. And so when we can open ourselves in one place, especially in our bodies where we tend to hold a lot of rigidity, a lot of tension, a lot of patterns, whether it's patterns of tension, patterns of thought, patterns of emotion, we stay stuck. And so if we're not doing something new, if we're not in our movement practice doing new things, then we can expect that when we show up to our relationship, unless we are challenging ourselves to move through space and see new patterns and orient ourselves and think in new and different ways, then what causes us to believe that we would show up to the conflict and be able to handle it any differently? So there is the literal way of building relationship skills by working on it in the relationship itself. If you want to diminish defensiveness, you work on not getting defensive. If you want to increase your capacity to hold a boundary, then you work on holding a boundary. However, when we get into our bodies, this is a completely new way to orient ourselves that's outside of the triggers of the relationship. And when we come into a space where we're not often getting triggered, but where we're still challenging ourselves to think to be adaptable, to be agile and nimble as we move through space, then we can take some of those new patterns from our movement practice and we can bring them into the relationship. Now, I use dance as an example because this is something I do often. If you are a golfer or a tennis player, or you move through space in some other way, try something new. Try doing a new move. Try breaking the pattern of your normal stroke or however you're doing something. If you're a gamer, try doing something new inside the game. If you're a singer, try singing at a slightly different octave to see what happens. If you drive the same way to work every day, try taking a new route and seeing what happens. When we can expand our perspective and the options that are available to us in how we move through space, whether it's on the road, in our bodies, and ultimately in our relationships, then we open up new doors of possibility. And then we don't always have to literally work on the thing, because often when we continuously work on something, we become fatigued. Just like if you're going to the gym and you are only doing squats every single day, your quads, your glutes, your hamstrings are going to get very fatigued until you can't work on it anymore. It's just too much. So if you find that you are coming up against challenges in the relationship, patterns of conflict, patterns around communication, and you just can't break through, go somewhere completely different. Go to the golf course, go to the singing booth, go somewhere else, try something new, and watch how many more options become available to you when you're back inside the same old situation with your partner. And just notice, the more new things you do outside the relationship that have nothing to do with the relationship, the more you bring new possibility and new ways of thinking and potentially new patterns of being into the relationship itself. So we don't always have to literally work on the thing. We can go elsewhere, we can get creative, we can actually have fun. Novel thought. We can have fun and improve our relationship at the same time. So, food for thought for you today. Where is one place that you can go do something new, completely unrelated to your relationship, where there's no triggers, there's no baggage, and you can try to move or be in yourself, in your body, in space in a new way, and then bring back that sense of openness and possibility to your relationship. When you try this, let me know how it goes. I would love to hear.